Next month, humanity is launching a $4.3 billion space telescope, to map the furthest reaches of the cosmos.
Right.
But by 2028, tech companies basically want to use that exact same orbital vacuum just to cool down their server racks.
Yeah, it's wild.
It really is. So, welcome to Thursday, July 16th, 2026. Today's stack of tech briefings makes one thing abundantly clear, which is that the technology industry is quite literally outgrowing the planet.
I mean, the sheer scale of the transition happening right now is just unprecedented. We're watching the underlying architecture of human computing being ripped out and replaced in real time.
Yeah.
And the ripple effects are touching everything from orbital logistics to literally the cars on our streets.
Exactly. And the mission of today's deep dive is to really cut through all that daily noise for you. We're going to connect the dots across the chaotic AI software wars, the massive physical infrastructure boom, humanoid robotics, escalating cybersecurity threats, and yes, those orbital space data centers.
There's a lot to cover.
There is, but by the end of this conversation, you will have a comprehensive understanding of exactly where this landscape stands right now and where it's, well, violently accelerating. So, okay, let's unpack this. I want to start with the software titans.
Yes, so tomorrow, July 17th, is the highly anticipated launch of Google's Gemini 3.5 Pro. And look, on paper, it's a monster.
It is.
It's got a 2 million token context window paired with this brand new DeepThink reasoning mode. But getting to tomorrow has been an absolute nightmare for their engineering teams.
Because they had to entirely scrap the original Gemini 3.5 Pro base model, right? Like they had to restart pre-training from an older Gemini 3 foundation.
Exactly.
Which is crazy because when you're burning tens of millions of dollars in compute, you don't just scrap a foundation model on a whim. Like if building AI models is like baking a cake, did Google just realize the flour was bad after it was already in the oven?
That's a really good way to put it. The briefings show they suffered structural failures in recursive tool calling and SVG generation. Yeah, and for anyone building autonomous agents, a failure in recursive tool calling is fatal. I mean, it's the core engine of multi-step logic.
Right, because the AI has to call a tool, evaluate what comes out, and then recursively decide the next tool to call.
Exactly, until the problem is solved. So if the foundational memory architecture is corrupt, the model enters a hallucination loop. It's not just a software bug you can patch with a hotfix.
Right.
The structural reasoning itself degrades.
It's like hiring a master chef who goes to the pantry for an onion, realizes they need a knife, goes to the hardware store to forge a steel blade, and then completely forgets they were making soup in the first place.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. If the foundational memory loop is broken, you literally have to rebuild the chef's brain from scratch. And even today, less than 24 hours before launch, Google hasn't published a finalized model card or pricing tier.
Which is such a precarious position to be in, especially when you look at Anthropic's trajectory right now.
Yeah. Anthropic is a whole different story.
They just confirmed their S-1 filing for an October 2026 IPO, and their financial metrics are just staggering. They're looking at a $1 trillion valuation backed by an annual revenue run rate of approximately $47 billion.
It's massive. And what's fascinating here is Anthropic's public narrative.
It really feels like the perfect Ivy League college application, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, they are walking into this IPO with the top safety score on the Future of Life Index. They just finalized talks with Samsung for custom silicon.
Yep.
And they made a huge strategic pre-training hire by bringing Andrej Karpathy on board.
Yeah.
It's just this pristine, highly disciplined public image.
Well, on the flip side, OpenAI is kind of looking like the kid with a messy detention record.
That's one way to look at it.
I mean, they just launched GPT 5.6 and ChatGPT Work for Enterprise, which are massive technical achievements, but they've got that Apple lawsuit overhang. They're locked in government stake negotiations. And just yesterday, the New York Times sought legal sanctions against them, basically alleging OpenAI deliberately withheld evidence about their training data during discovery.
So you have Anthropic pitching pure stability, while OpenAI is fighting multiple simultaneous legal fires.
Exactly.
And we can't ignore the fact that the broader market is aggressively squeezing both of them right now. Meta just dropped their Muse Spark 1.1 API, and they are deliberately undercutting the entire market on price per million tokens.
Zuckerberg is just running a scorched earth campaign for developer market share.
He really is. And meanwhile, if you're an enterprise team routing through DeepSeek, you have a massive headache today.
Oh, because of the mandatory migration?
Yeah. DeepSeek is forcing a mandatory API migration to their V4 models by next week, July 24th. If developers don't rip out and swap their legacy model IDs by Wednesday, they're going to face hard API errors.
So the whole software landscape is incredibly volatile. But, all this model training, these price wars, the API routing, it all requires a physical substrate. I mean, you can't run DeepThink or MuseSpark on good intentions.
No, you cannot.
You need silicon. And the company manufacturing it just gave the market a massive green light.
They absolutely did. Which brings us to Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. TSMC just reported their Q2 2026 earnings, and honestly, it completely redefines our understanding of the infrastructure boom.
The numbers are wild.
Yeah. Revenue hit $40.2 billion. Earnings per share came in at 4.31. But the metric that dictates the future is their net income growth.
Which is what?
77.4% year-on-year.
77.4%. Look, 77% net income growth for a hardware manufacturer operating at a $40 billion quarterly scale. That just defies traditional hardware economics.
It really does.
It's not even like the old selling pickaxes during a digital gold rush analogy anymore. It's like TSMC is the only functioning toll booth on a one-way highway, and every single car in line is a tech giant holding a blank check.
And the underlying math completely backs that up. The briefings highlight that TSMC's N3 and 2-nanometer technologies now account for 77% of their total wafer revenue.
Wow. So we are talking about the absolute cutting edge of semiconductor physics here.
Exactly. Furthermore, TSMC management confirmed an aggressive expansion of their CoWoS capacity.
Right. Advanced packaging. And with CoWoS, everyone knows we're pushing the physical boundaries of the reticle limit because you can only stitch so many memory modules and GPUs onto a single silicon substrate before thermal throttling basically caps the performance of the whole package.
Yeah, NVIDIA and AMD's most advanced AI accelerators are entirely bottlenecked by how fast TSMC can perfect that advanced packaging process.
But I have to push back a little here on the sustainability of this. People were terrified the AI hype bubble was going to burst and hyperscalers would pull back on spending. But with 77.4% growth, I mean, is there any ceiling here? Or are these tech giants just writing TSMC blank checks defensively?
Well, analysts did warn for months that hyperscalers like Google, Meta, Microsoft, they would eventually exhaust their capital expenditure budgets. People feared an AI infrastructure plateau.
Right.
But TSMC raising full-year guidance and citing extremely robust demand proves that the build-out is actually accelerating and is transitioning from just defensive spending to actual physical deployment.
Oh, physical deployment.
Yeah, that's the key shift we are seeing in today's sources. The demand isn't drying up because this silicon isn't just sitting in server farms generating text anymore. It's being deployed into physical bodies and vehicles in the real world.
Right. The massive infrastructure build-out is directly enabling this next phase. We are seeing it happen right now in San Jose. Figure AI confirmed their bot Q factory is churning out more than 55 Figure 03 humanoid robots every single week.
And these are not just research prototypes locked in a lab somewhere. Over 350 of these humanoids are actively deployed at BMW's Leipzig plant.
Building cars.
Yeah, they are directly expanding BMW's high-voltage EV battery assembly lines.
Which makes sense because high-voltage battery assembly requires absolute precision, and it's inherently dangerous for human workers. If a Figure 03 makes a critical error, you just lose a piece of hardware. But if a human makes an error on a high-voltage line, you have a tragedy.
Exactly. But it's not just factory floors. This physical AI deployment is moving on to public streets at breakneck speed. Waymo just rolled out autonomous robotaxis into a 65-square-mile service area in Atlanta.
And they're doing that directly through the Uber app now.
Right. Waymo is taking a very methodical, city-by-city approach. But the broader mobility sector is moving way faster. We just saw Stellantis, Wave, and Uber sign a global memorandum of understanding.
A global MOU for level 4 robotaxis.
Yes. They are targeting global commercial deployment, pushing Wave's embodied AI driver into Stellantis vehicles, and they are targeting London and Tokyo first.
See, I have to question the sanity of a global rollout strategy. Waymo is carefully geofencing 65 square miles in Atlanta, mapping every millimeter before they let a car drive itself. But Wave and Stellantis are targeting global level 4 deployment. Isn't a global rollout incredibly premature given how different driving in London is from driving in Tokyo?
Well, this raises a huge point about the fundamental difference in their underlying architectures. Waymo is heavily reliant on high-definition pre-mapping and deterministic rules. So it's safer, but it's brittle outside of its geofence.
Okay.
Wave, on the other hand, is using end-to-end machine learning. Their embodied AI driver ingests visual data and makes continuous probabilistic decisions, basically much like a human driver. If Wave's model actually works, it scales infinitely without needing pre-mapped routes.
But the risk profile of probabilistic decision-making in a 2-ton vehicle is just astronomical.
It is.
And that physical risk is moving straight into our living rooms, too. Bloomberg sources revealed that OpenAI, working with Jony Ive's hardware team, is actively developing consumer hardware.
Yeah, a screenless, movable home companion speaker. They're deliberately moving away from the smartphone paradigm. They want a physical entity that navigates your personal space autonomously.
I mean, a screenless, movable speaker designed as a companion. It sounds less like a smartphone replacement and more like they're trying to build a modern-day R2-D2 for your living room.
That's a fair comparison.
But as AI moves from secure data centers into moving vehicles and home companions, the attack surface for bad actors just expands exponentially, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. A software bug or hallucination is no longer just bad code on a screen. It is a physical danger.
Right.
Which perfectly explains the historic cybersecurity advisory issued today.
Right.
The Five Eyes intelligence agencies, so that's the US, UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand,
Yeah.
they just released joint guidance titled Careful Adoption of Agentic AI Services.
This is a huge deal. This is the first time these global intelligence agencies have coordinated specifically to target autonomous agentic AI in critical infrastructure.
And when you contextualize this with current threats, their panic is completely justified. CISA issued an emergency warning for an actively exploited Adobe Cold Fusion flaw today.
That's CVE 2026-48282, right?
Yes, exactly. But even more alarming is the disclosure from the Cursor IDE. They just disclosed 2 zero-click remote code execution vulnerabilities.
0-click. So if agentic AI is the driver of the car, these software vulnerabilities are like leaving the doors unlocked with the keys in the ignition.
Precisely. Now imagine an autonomous AI agent with high-level system permissions writing code in that Cursor environment. An attacker could hijack the agent's credentials instantly and silently.
And throw in the fact that Google just had to disrupt the NetNut botnet, which had quietly compromised 2 million Android devices. I mean, the scope of the problem is terrifying.
It is.
But let me push back on the novelty of this AI threat for a second. The Five Eyes are warning about AI, but hasn't critical infrastructure always been a total mess?
Well, yeah.
Look at the Janyscape Linux KVM flaw that was patched this week. That bug allowed virtual machine escapes and was hiding in the kernel for 16 years.
You're totally right. I mean, the vulnerability itself isn't new, and Janyscape proves the architecture has always been fragile. But what agentic AI changes is the velocity.
The speed of the attack.
Exactly. An AI agent can scan thousands of nodes and deploy a payload across a grid in the time it takes you to blink. And this is why AI governance is becoming a massive geopolitical issue.
Right.
In fact, our sources note that tomorrow, July 17th, Chinese President Xi Jinping will deliver his country's first ever presidential AI keynote at the World AI Conference in Shanghai.
Wow.
Yeah, an event that is explicitly designed to help define the global competitive landscape.
So if you're a tech company right now, terrestrial power grids are maxed out, hackers are everywhere exploiting 16-year-old flaws, and global superpowers are fighting over regulations. There's basically only one place left to go.
And that is up. To escape Earth's limitations, they're looking to the stars.
Right, space. Let's talk about SpaceX's orbital AI data center plans, because this is just wild.
It is. SpaceX is detailing plans to build an orbital AI data center by 2028 to complement their Colossus ground campus in Mississippi.
Okay, orbiting data centers to avoid zoning permits. That feels like a sci-fi villain's lead a loophole.
It kind of does. But the logic from the sources is actually brilliant. Low Earth orbit provides abundant, continuous solar power and, like you said, zero terrestrial land use permits.
But are they seriously going to beam heavy AI compute back down to Earth from space by 2028? Or is this just a distraction from the ground-based energy shortages they're facing?
The engineering hurdles are staggering, particularly handling thermal radiation at a vacuum without liquid cooling. But it shows how desperate they are. And it creates this incredible contrast with what NASA is doing.
Oh, the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope.
Yes. While commercial companies look to space for enterprise API calls, NASA is launching this $4.3 billion observatory in exactly 44 days, on August 30th.
And it's launching on a SpaceX Falcon Heavy, right?
Exactly. It'll survey dark energy and exoplanets with a field of view 100 times wider than Hubble.
That dichotomy is just amazing. But you know, while we look to space to solve future compute problems back down here on Earth, AI is fundamentally altering how we experience human culture and entertainment right now.
Yeah, shifting from the cold vacuum of space logistics to deeply human impacts. Let's talk about Google's Data Land in Los Angeles.
Idaland.
Yeah, co-founded by media artist Rifik Anadol, it billed as the world's first AI-native cultural institution. It's a 25,000 square foot facility using Gemini, Google Cloud, and the large nature model to generate real-time interactive art.
But look, is a 25,000 square foot facility powered by Gemini actual art, or is it just the world's most expensive, elaborate Google Cloud tech demo?
Well, it's certainly redefining the category.
Mm.
And if you contrast this rapid innovation with traditional Hollywood, it's pretty glaring. The federal antitrust case brought by 12 states to block the Paramount-Warner Bros. Discovery merger has just been deleted again.
Which just leaves the old media guard in this state of anxious paralysis. While traditional studios are trapped in courtrooms arguing over legacy mergers, tech companies are literally redefining what a museum is.
They're moving at the speed of compute, and as we saw with TSMC and Anthropic, that compute is only accelerating.
It really is. Well, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. For you listening, we went from the intense software battle between Anthropic's pristine IPO filing and Google's scrapped foundation models, all the way to TSMC's historic hardware numbers.
Yep.
We talked about humanoid robots building cars, the regulatory alarms ringing across the globe from the Five Eyes, and tech giants literally looking to space to build data centers. So what does this all mean for you?
Well, I want to leave you with one final unmentioned thread to pull on. We discussed agentic AI acting autonomously, and we discussed SpaceX putting AI data centers in orbit to avoid earthly regulations.
Right.
If an autonomous agentic AI system operating in a jurisdiction-free satellite makes a decision that negatively impacts critical infrastructure back on Earth, whose laws apply, who exactly do the Five Eyes serve a warrant to in outer space?
Wow. That is a chilling puzzle to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, and we'll see you next time.